Thank you. In a village I visited not so long ago, school had already begun, but upon arrival, it did not occur to me that I'd actually reached the school premises. Unlike all the schools I went to or that I had been to, there were no classrooms, not even a welcome post to the school, but it was just a couple of trees, to be specific, mango trees, under which there were very many kids really excited to study. There were no desks, they were just sitting on the floor. They had no books, they had no pens, they had no pencils. And I remember the teachers were struggling to communicate to these very huge numbers amidst the windy weather. And you know, amidst all of this, I would have been heartbroken, but I was inspired because you know what? The kids, nothing else mattered to these kids than the fact that they were studying. It was not about whether they had a classroom or whether they had a book. It was the excitement that if they come to school every other day, they would grow up to become teachers, nurses, and very many other dreams. But I remember that while growing up, just like any other African child, my parents used to tell us how they went to school, how they studied under trees, how they walked miles and miles just to make it to school. And you know, in this moment, it struck that 40 years later, this is still the reality of very many young children in Uganda. And like many of you, I wondered, what is there to show for the efforts of the very many stakeholders and leaders in our current government as far as education access is concerned? And well, there are more schools that have been built, and Uganda prides itself in the universal primary education, which in simple terms is free education. But in reality, Uganda for over 4 years now has been reported to have learning poverty at 80%. What this means in simple terms is in every 10 children, only 8 of them can read a basic sentence or count by the age of 10. The government will say we have free education. Every other time, they will cut ribbons to open new schools. But what happens in the new schools? We don't have trained teachers, we don't have learning materials, and little effort whatsoever to kind of track whether the children actually study or not. But why is this even a concern? Uganda, like any other African country, prides itself in the fastest growing young population. But honestly, if we are not investing in the education of these young people, if they are not actually learning, what is the future of Uganda? We are repeating the same cycles of poverty, of dependence, and we are robbing these young children of their dreams of becoming the leaders, the thinkers, and the innovators of the country. We're just not failing them from achieving their dreams, but we are risking the entire future of the country. But you know, like I mentioned, to the children, they're still showing up every other day under the trees, on dusty floors, no books, hungry, barefooted, but hopeful. But the real question is, when is the government or when is our leadership ready to fully show up for these children? Because they do not need our pity. They need a system that works. And a system that works is a system that acknowledges that they need to actually learn while in school. The one that will invest in training teachers, in giving them the learning materials, and most importantly, making sure that they study what they should be studying in schools. This is a call just not to the government or the leadership, but to the entire stakeholders. Because in Uganda, just like any other developing country, it takes a village to raise a child. To the parents, to the guardians, to the community leaders, this is the future of the country. Together, let's raise our voices to hold the government accountable and ensure that our young children have access to the right education. Thank you.